Hypothesis testing is a crucial statistical technique that helps us make informed decisions about populations based on sample data. Here's a more detailed explanation of the steps involved in hypothesis testing. Hypothesis H0. This is the default assumption or the status quo that there is no significant effect or difference in the population. Alternative hypothesis, HA or H1. This is the claim you're trying to find evidence for. It states that there is a significant effect or difference in the population. Choosing a significance level, alpha. A significance level, alpha. The significance level, often denoted as alpha, determines the threshold for considering a result as statistically significant. Common values for alpha include 0.05, 5%, and 0.01, 1%. These values represent the maximum probability of making a type 1 error, rejecting a true null hypothesis. Collecting and analyzing data. Gather a sample from the population and collect relevant data. Perform appropriate statistical analysis based on the nature of your data, such as means, proportions, or correlations. Calculating test statistic. The test statistic quantifies how far your sample result is from what's expected under the null hypothesis. The choice of test statistic depends on the type of data and the hypothesis being tested. Calculating p-value. The p-value is the probability of observing a test statistic as extreme as the one calculated, assuming the null hypothesis is true. A small p-value, typically alpha, suggests that the observed data is unlikely under the null hypothesis, leading to the rejection of the null hypothesis. Making a decision, if the p-value is less than the significance level, alpha, you reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. This suggests that the evidence supports the claim in the alternative hypothesis. If the p-value is greater than or equal to alpha, you fail to reject the null hypothesis. This implies that there isn't enough evidence to support the claim in the alternative hypothesis.
Please pause the video and make sure your team is ready. Just like the first video, you will input your answers in the comment section of the video. Question 1. Imagine you're designing an experiment to test the effectiveness of a new teaching method. How would you formulate the null and alternative hypotheses? What factors would influence your choice of significance level for the hypothesis test? Select A, B, C, or D amongst your team. Go ahead and pause the video until your team is ready to resume. Question 2. Consider a scenario where you're conducting a medical study to determine the effectiveness of a new drug. What ethical considerations should be taken into account when designing the experiment and interpreting the results? How might the outcome of the hypothesis test impact patient care? Select A, B, C, or D amongst your team. Go ahead and pause the video until your team is ready to resume. Question 3. Imagine you are the manager of Café Delight and have conducted the experiment as described in the case study. After analyzing the collected satisfaction scores using a two-sample t-test, you find that the p-value is 0.08. The chosen significance is 0.05. How would you interpret this result and make a decision regarding the effect of reducing the average wait time on customer satisfaction? Consider the potential factors that might influence your decision and the implications of both accepting and rejecting the null hypothesis. Select A, B, C, or D amongst your team. Go ahead and pause the video until your team